All systems go. Cleared for takeoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo. We're back for the round 2 showdown edition here on the Mayo Media Network. It's the Mayo Media Network YouTube station, SHIPIT Nation collaboration, and we're back earlier this week. We're going to talk some Scottish Open. Got through round 1, the overnight setup. I'm not sure how everybody else did it. I actually tried to wake up early. Mayo and I talked about this yesterday. Did not happen. Ended up sleeping in. It was fine. Didn't even wake up for the possible withdrawals. I never do that with money on the line and everything with it. It was just one of those things. So afterwards, got up, got to catch some of the golf today in the Discord over at SHIPIT Nation. Got to see some of the stuff. Let me know in the chat who you're tilting early, who's got you torn up a little bit about your day one lineups. But I will talk about that in a second when we get there. Before we get into it, though, I want to remind everyone very quickly, if you've got nothing else to do this week, there still is no baseball until tomorrow. So if you haven't yet done so, get on over to Drafters. Go to shipitnation.com/drafters. Use the code SHIPIT, or if you just use that link, it'll auto-enter it for you. You can get signed up, start some best ball drafts, and do those with our guys. You can check it out in the videos. Title and Marley went live. They've done a couple. Title did a 15-minute video breaking down everything and letting you guys know how he won the $250,000 last year. But usually when you sign up to Drafters, it's a 100% deposit bonus up to $50. When you use the code SHIPIT or you use that link, shipitnation.com/drafters, you get a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. So we're going to talk about this. I know some people are going to be tilting some day one stuff. Here's the thing. This is what I said I would bring up earlier. It's not to do with the course necessarily. I know there was some of this thought early on, and people brought this up maybe as a bit of a thought process, but just in general, it reminds me a little bit of day one at LACC. And this course is way too easy. It's not what we thought. Okay, first of all, the wave stuff and the weather and everything that people were talking about, myself included, wouldn't be today. Today, the split was basically even. It would be tomorrow morning, and that's what we're about to get to in a second. It looks like it's going to be there. So again, Scotland, anything can happen, can change on a dime. But second of all, it's like there's 14 guys better than 3 under. So if your guy is +1, he's not dead. He's literally 4 strokes away from being at almost the top 20. And then above that, there's only 4 guys better than 5 under. So just because Benny Ann goes out and rips up the course is not saying this place is easy. It's just maybe because you're seeing guys like Davis Riley and Rory McIlroy, who you're not used to seeing fly up the boards these days lately, at least not after the first round. So we'll see that. We'll see how it progresses as the week goes on. Talking about that quickly, just hopping over here and looking at the early live model when it comes to the cut line probabilities at Data Golf. Looks like 1 under is 36%, 2 under 38%, and then goes from there. I mean, just by the weather tomorrow, it looks like -1 to me would be the one that's more in play. So we'll see how that all shakes out as we go on. And let's do that. Let's bring up the weather. Solo show today, by the way. Just wanted to get out to you guys as soon as possible once the rounds ended. So tomorrow will be myself and Hoop back here again, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern, if you want to mark that down, assuming things wrap up when they're supposed to. But in looking at it now, weather today stayed like it was kind of supposed to. Tomorrow looks like it was supposed to be when we were coming into the week. So just a little bit of rain in the morning, much slower winds, looking like 7 to 10 miles per hour sustained. Maximum gusts of 15 is what we're still showing for tomorrow. And then tomorrow afternoon, you go 16 to 21 miles per hour sustained, up to 28, 29, even 30 mile per hour gusts. So I expect to see a pretty big differential, call it a stroke or more between that wave. I think you're going to find that in your main slate lineups where that happens. And then I think especially in Showdown, we're going to dig in like we always do and go through it. But some of the guys today, let's see what happened up here at the top. Obviously, Benny Ann, all these guys to get up there, you got to putt well. I don't see anybody really that just, completely putted well and nothing else. It looks like everybody played pretty solid across the boards from the stats perspective. Going the other way, just trying to see here, Bramlett gained a ton on approach, but one hole, right hole one, he had the hole out there. So that was a big gain, but even beyond that, he was pretty good. Putnam, really solid with the irons, actually across the board. Nothing with the putter at all. Lost almost 3 strokes. Just trying to go through a few of these guys here quickly. Not too much else. Those some of the bigger names up top. Maybe Jordan Smith is a guy. Davis Riley just had everything going on and going in his favor. Obviously, the putter, a big contributor of that as well. But I've got it marked down And just going through the weather, we'll get to the chat and stuff as you guys are bringing things up as we go throughout. But just to talk about it, definitely going to be, it seems like a broken record. It's not a major. It's the Scottish Open. We'll have the Open next week, of course. But it feels like every time we get to one of these bigger events or right around the majors or just before them, we're always talking about this. And this is what I see again. So all guys in the morning look good. I know I'm going to set my player pool up that way. We're going to talk about some of them as we go throughout, maybe try and formulate some of the guys we think are better within the tiers when we get to it. But then the other factor is if you want to include one of those guys in the back half, right? There is guys playing really good golf that can find their way throughout the wind that may be in a spot here where you could mix them into your lineup and have some of those 5-1s. But for the most part, it actually looks like I'll be much heavier on the guys that are going out in the morning, just as a whole. And then also just looking through my early player pool, preliminary player pool, of course, over at shipitnation.com. All the content goes up early. Those members over there can check it out now. Just looking at it, very stars and scrubs heavy. It's pretty much all guys from like 7,500 down to 6,300. And then it's at the top, it's Scotty, Hovland, Ricky, Hatton, Clark, Lowry. And so again, not necessarily saying I'm playing all of them. We're going to talk about that in a second when we get to the tiers and break it down. But you will have to make some decisions to get a little bit different. It's also perfectly fine to leave money on the table. That's one of the biggest things I think people don't do on these slates. And then they say, I've got the nuts. I found it. It's Scotty with all the best guys that we talked about or that show on the stats on all these sites. Yeah, that's the lineup that you could play in your higher dollars, smaller field stuff if you want to. But again, it's probably still duped on top of the fact that everyone's going to have something similar because that's what makes sense. So I'm talking more the large field, the $20 tomorrow, $50K up top, not the best structure, not what you expect. But do you expect anything different? I should say what you do expect is that, but if you're playing to win and playing for that 50K, that's the place you got to go to do it. So looking at the chat here, shout out to my guy, Kevin. I gotta say, we got to pull this up, Kevin. We got to settle this now. I know Rye did not get under par. So what did he do? So Rye +1. We talked about this. The reason I'm bringing this up, Kevin said, people are really looking at Rye and Minwoo Lee. So he was right on Rye. Rye is a guy that +1 after day one, losing on approach and with the putter, though. So you got to be careful. He's a guy that could come through on day two. And then Minwoo is 2 under, but all with the putter. Almost 3 strokes game with the putter. He did have 6 birdies on the day and left one of the par 5s out there. Actually really made huge mistakes on that par 5, one of the bigger mistakes he made on the day. So we'll look into some of the other plays as we go throughout. Early showdowns, our guy Daniel says, love these early showdown shows. Me too. I like coming out and getting these done early, having what we can. And then that's the point of shipitnation.com. If you guys are in the Discord, we'll update if anything changes. We do put a player pool up over on the site that you can go off of if you don't have time to look up the stats or you're not sure, or even with the stats, you have questions on how you go about your roster construction, your general process, or putting in 20 plus lineups or something like that. We can help you out over in the Discord at shipitnation.com. And then Starlord's dad already tilting a little, always in the chat. Appreciate the support. Says looking for some knowledge after this round 1 carnage. So there's definitely some guys. I know Victor Hovland was a guy. He'll come up here in a second. He actually goes out early tomorrow, by the way, but just looking him up, bring his stats up first because we're about to segue into these tiers. Lost 2 strokes on approach, really bad off the tee, couldn't find a putter, left all 3 par 5s out there, only 2 birdies on the day, and lost over 2 strokes on approach, even while gaining almost a full stroke on hole 14 on approach. So it's going to be hard for people to click Victor Hovland. I think that's a for sure one just to think right out of the gates. Beetlebane said Connors and Woodland are the guys causing me trouble. Let's look up Connors and Woodland. Those are some of the other guys people are tilting here early. Wow, Connors lost. I didn't know the stats were this bad. I was just monitoring the numbers, but wouldn't feel too bad. This is actually an interesting thought process here. I think, though, he goes out tomorrow afternoon, so he's going to have to find it in the wind. Nope, Connors goes out in the morning, so 7,900 tomorrow. That's good news. So one thing I will say, this is a good one we brought up early, is people always go to the same stats in Showdown. I know we always talk about being within a bubble and going from there, but Connors is the case for the other side. What everybody does in Showdown is find me the guys that were good with their irons and they'll correct their putting. I think the big thing that you have to look at with a guy like Connors is how often is he going to lose almost 4 strokes on approach, leave all the par 5s out there, only make 1 birdie in 1 round, and it be pretty evenly dispersed. It wasn't even like a big mistake or 1 bad hole. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, actually 8 pretty strong holes where the irons were bad and contributed to that number. It wasn't just one bad hole or went in a hazard and big mistakes from there into the water or something like that. When we have courses where that's a factor, that's what we're looking at when we're doing this deep dive. This was across the board. And while that also can be looked at as, yeah, he's actually playing horrible across the board for many holes, I don't think he'll bounce back. You also have to be willing to take that on because of the fact he actually is a better iron player than 95% of this field for the most part. So that's something I always look at. I'll have no problem going back to him just based on those stats. +2, he's not even out of this, right? If we think the cut line is going to be 1 under, that's nothing. Going out in the better conditions in the morning, definitely have no problem with him. And then who was the other one? Woodland, you said? And Woodland, I think, is 7,500 tomorrow. Actually, really strong stats. Nothing to worry about with Woodland. Actually, I would be interested in Woodland for tomorrow if you want to mark that down. I think he's definitely a good one to look at. He actually gained almost 2 strokes on approach, lost almost 2 strokes with the putter, still made 3 birdies, and left all 3 par 5s out there. So I'd actually have a bunch of interest in a $7,500 Woodland for tomorrow. And that's even with me having interest on the main slate. He was one of the guys I really liked on the main slate at 7,600. So I think he's somebody that we can look at as well. And then Jason asked about strokes gain off the tee tomorrow, gain or lose importance. I don't have a strong opinion on that. I think, again, it's just going to be the all-around game. And again, tomorrow is much more of a game theory slate. Not that they all aren't in some way, shape, or form, but point being around tomorrow, the bubble that we're in will play the weather angle. But most people won't. There's other people that will still go to the other side and play those guys in the afternoon. But don't be surprised when the best plays, quote-unquote best plays, have the most ownership in the morning. But again, remembering that a 20 to 25% owned guy is still 75% or 80% of the field not playing them. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you're building. And then lastly, Keith asked about Brandon Wu, birdie free on the day. Pretty hard to do, as much as I made fun of it not being super easy. I mean, a lot of guys still made at least a birdie today. Brandon Wu did not do that. A very bad game across the board. Off the tee bad, approach bad, around the green bad, and the putter bad. Pretty evenly distributed. So could make an argument, the Corey Connors thing, but not when it's literally everything across the board. So I actually don't have any interest in him. -5 cut. We are all toast. So yeah, I don't think so. We'll see from there. But let's dive in. Let's go into these tiers and look at the stuff. The first topic of discussion is going to be Scotty up top. He's 11,400. I expect him to be extremely popular tomorrow. And here's why. I already looked at it. I told you guys when you go to the PMAM guys, at least for the bubble and for what we're looking at, you're going to see people be able to easily fit Scotty in. There's no trouble whatsoever. It goes Scotty. Then it drops down to Victor Hovland, who people definitely, he'll be probably one of the lower ones because you have Fowler, Hatton, Clark. Some of the guys we'll dive into in a second. So I think Scotty's just going to be extremely popular, 30% even, because he's very easy to fit. Even at the 11.4 price tag, it's unlike the main slate where it got uncomfortable. You actually have a ton of guys and a ton that played really well today, some 3 unders and 4 unders and stuff that are down in this upper 6K, lower 7K range. So it's very easy to build Scotty lineups tomorrow. So 2 things I would say. 1, it's fine to go to him. I'm not going off of him, that's for sure. 2, and we'll go dissect his stats in a second, but 2, there's lots of ways to get different. And actually a third thing I'll bring up, because I wanted to bring up the first point that I won't go away from him, is that also leave money on the table with Scotty. This would be the prime position to do it, where everyone says, oh, I've got the money to go up from Gary Woodland to Max Homa. What's the difference? Why not just, again, you could build a lineup with all 3 of them tomorrow, but I'm saying in a lineup where you have that, why not just leave Homa out for Woodland? We just explained why Woodland could be a good play, and it's not really going to be that much different in Showdown. It's more than fine to leave a couple thousand even on the table on a slate like this. And I can tell you from experience, it's worked for me in the past. I'm definitely going to be doing it again. So if you don't have an optimizer, I'd recommend using the solver. You can go down in our description below, get set up with them. It's going to be kind to you to have it, especially if you are a SHIPIT Nation member, because starting next week, we didn't do the official announcement yet, but the teasers have been out there. I've been working on it last couple of days with the tech side. We are going to have projections for DraftKings on PGA and on MMA, and we're going to have ownership for both. Going to be very easily sortable on the website. But then also, if you're a member at SHIPIT Nation and you have the solver, you're able to get those put directly into your solver account for you, preloaded and updated as we make updates throughout the week, from the initial to the finish line, with weather, everything that we associate with it. So definitely a good idea to get in there now. Very helpful on slates like this, because typically when you're hand building 1 to 3 max, or even if you're putting in 10 hand builds on your own, you're likely to stick to the same group, which is never a bad thing. Like I would say, if you're playing lighter, play tighter. So if you're only playing 10 lineups, I got no problem with you playing a smaller player pool and sticking to that. But what I'm saying is when people say, oh, I want to get some of these guys in there and you can easily fit them, you end up leaving guys out and going, I really like that guy. But then when he goes off tomorrow and shoots 4 under bogey free, which is awesome for tomorrow, you're like, I didn't have that guy in my pool. I thought I liked him. Optimizer can force that. And then also you'll get some lineups that you just wouldn't expect, like leaving money on the table, all those other factors that you just don't see people doing. So highly recommend that. Going back to Scotty, though, and then we'll get into these 9K guys. Scotty is losing strokes on approach as we go through this here after round 1. Got 4 birdies today, left one. No, he took care of all the par 5s. Actually, I thought he left one out there. Made 2 bogeys, lost with the putter. Who cares? To me, like, again, it's Scotty Scheffler. He's still losing with the putter. There's ways to fit him. I'm not too concerned about him. I play him. If you didn't want to play him, it's fine. You could go with something ridiculous like a Fowler, Hatton, Clark, and just do it that way where you leave him out. It's not really that ridiculous as much as, like I was going to say, is if you went with 2 of those guys and left the money on the table where you left Scotty and just dropped him down to Ricky Fowler and left that money, you're double leveraging in that you're fading Scotty, who's likely one of the highest owned, if not the highest owned on the slate. And then you're also leaving all that money on the table to be unique as well. That's something that would be a little bit more ridiculous to most that I think is perfectly fine tomorrow that you can do. Hovland, I think, is important for tomorrow. And again, people would say you're crazy. Why would you ever play this guy? Don't go to him. He had a horrible day. All the stats that you can bring up and look at. He lost over 2 strokes on approach. He lost almost a stroke with the putter. Very bad across the board. I already talked about where he gained almost a stroke on approach on 1 hole and still lost over 2 on the slate. Only 2 birdies, but all the par 5s left out there, unlikely. Another guy like Corey Connors where he can fix that approach game. People make fun of his around the green game all the time. It was actually fine today. He gained on both the front and back, pretty evenly dispersed around these greens. So it actually wasn't his problem. And then putter is putter. You can always figure that out. So I'm not too worried about him. And I think the reason he's important is because he'll get a little more ownership than you would expect after this +3 round because of the PMAM splits and people going there. But when I go to Fowler and Hatton and Clark and those guys in a minute, and I'll rush through them quickly because I don't think there's a lot to talk about. Fowler gained almost 3 with the putter, made bogey on 18, otherwise perfect throughout the round, 4 birdies, the rest all pars, left 2 of the par 5s, all 3 of the par 5s out there. So that makes Ricky extra interesting. Also takes away from from Hovland and Hatton, who I'm bringing up now. Pretty solid. Again, 3 birdies left, 1, 2 of the par 5s out there, lost on approach. So if you care about that, something to look at, but also lost with the putter. So I'm not too concerned about Hatton. So I think people go to Fowler and Hatton here. And then Clark is the one that should get love. Played very good throughout the day. Only 1 bogey, 3 birdies, gained heavily on approach, lost heavily with the putter, and left 2 of the par 5s out there. So I think that's where most people are going. And then I'll pull Lowry just so we have him up. Lowry shot +1, gained with the putter, lost on approach, lost heavily off the tee, left 2 of the par 5s out there, only 2 birdies, but definitely somebody that you could go back to. And I think, again, if you're playing these stacks and you're playing any type of MME, I definitely would like incorporating the guys, even if they're not the best plays, if you will. But I think it's definitely going to be Scotty, Ricky, Hatton, and Clark that you see getting the most ownership. Hovland, Lowry, 2 would be the 2 that would be left sort of the secondary up top there. But because people have the money to spend, they still will be popular. Throw any questions you guys have in the chat. I'll get them as we go throughout. But let's move on to this 8K range. Just a couple guys to check out. Keith asked this. I already talked about this earlier, Keith. Mostly 6 a.m. guys, because 6 guys in the AM, I should say it better. Now, I don't know who's going on at what time, but just in general, saying it that way, I definitely think anyone in the morning is better. But there will be some guys, and what will be where that will be highlighted is over in the player pool at shipitnation.com. I'll do another deep dive after this show. That's why we do these shows a little bit earlier. Get as much out to you as possible, break it down, deep dive it as much as I'm trying. Part of my process is going through this and then getting it out to you guys and then finalizing where my player pool is going to be at. And that brings it over to shipitnation.com, where we're then putting up any of the additionals, talking about this stuff in the chat for guys that we saw that may fit those 5-1 builds if you're doing them or anything like that. And then JT, a guy I could bring up. I'll talk about him. I think he's PM tomorrow, but just to bring up Homa, he says the guy he's going for tomorrow, I'm riding him all the way through. Those irons are fire. So let's have a look quickly. And I do think, just talk about, I'm almost positive Justin Thomas was this morning, right? Yeah. So he's going to be afternoon tomorrow. Mind you, Thomas can play through any weather. So at least that's kind of interesting, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 birdies, took care of the par 5s, much better week on approach, still losing it with the putter, but definitely a good early showing for Thomas. I saw on Twitter they had posted that he switched up his grip, that he's doing, I think, the left hand low for a righty putter. So it's just interesting to note that he switched that up a little bit. There was the one that they showed it on where he was trying to walk it in, got a little worried at the end, but then it still did drop for him, thankfully for him. So definitely something to keep in mind there. We'll be looking at Tom Kim now anyway in Homa, but let's pull up Rose quick first. Not much going on with Rose to talk about. He's even par. Go to Homa. The chat was talking about him. So Homa, interesting because JT says fire with the irons for 2 holes. Yeah, he was fire with the irons. He actually barely gained on approach on the day. Off the tee, I guess you could consider some of that if he's clubbing down on certain holes and stuff too. But left 2 of the par 5s out there, 5 birdies on the day, only 1 bogey. That would be more the reason I'd have interest. And he goes out in the morning at only 8,600. So I think he is interesting. Tom Kim was pretty solid across the board. A much better front 9 than back. And I just want to check quickly. I don't know if I have that up here. If anybody knows, I have it in my notes here. But let's just see if anybody has it. What side did Tom Kim start on? I know I've got it here because I posted in the tidbits on Twitter at ToeTagginTambo. If you guys don't follow me, go follow there. But just to have it brought up here, I think we have it. I think I got it right here. So Tom Kim went out late and he played off the 1. So Tom played, he is PMA. I'm sorry, JT. I'm talking about where he started. So he did come out on fire. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 under, 4 under through 7. And then from there, he kind of went all pars, a bogey on 14, 1 birdie on the back 9, left both the par 5s out there. So again, Tom Kim's still interesting, but I just wanted to make that note. The other thing to remember always in this format is anybody at the top. I'm just trying to plug it in here. So Homa, Tom Kim more than Homa for this example. Rory, for people that aren't playing within this bubble or are using a 1 in the afternoon, Riley, Benny Ann, Dietrich, and Tom Kim. Going in circles here. Now, I'm saying what I want to bring up first off is my point is that these guys are people that not many were on going into the main slate. Not enough, I should say, right? That some of them were owned more than others. I'm saying, but when these guys climb the board, what happens is immediate FOMO in round 2 strategy for Showdown of people saying, damn, I missed them on main slate. I got to hop on board in round 2. That's how we get some ownership translated across. I'm saying some of these guys are PMAM, so will fit the player pool better. But a guy like Rory, who was AM, PM, will still get some ownership tomorrow, whether it's in 5-1s or anything like that. He's definitely still going to get some ownership because it's just people missed out on the main and they played more Scotty or they played more Fleetwood, Hatton, balance builds or something like that. Dietrich, a guy people probably went back and forth on, they'll hop on and get on board with him now. Davis Riley, who people were unsure of, we had him in our tier rankings. I know Hoop was very high on him in the tier rankings at ShipItNation.com at 6,900. He had a great round 1. People will naturally say, I missed the boat. I got to hop on board with Davis Riley now. Samuel mentioned this. We will talk about that. I'm talking about him as I go through. Victor Hovland was the first one I mentioned. Again, people will say gross, disgusting. How could you? When you have the way the slate's setting up for us liking the PM AM wave, the guys going out in the morning, he's part of that. And because there is the guys around him, like I just talked about, that people will have more interest in, he'll naturally be somewhat owned because he's going out in the AM, but I don't think people commit to it. Also, he ended up getting very popular on the main slate. So contrary to what I just said up top, with the guys where you missed it, the FOMO of that, other people say, I'm good. I'm pretty comfy. I've got some Hovland. At least if he bounces back, it'll help my main slate. But that you could be dead on your showdown slate now. So I don't ever get the point in that thinking beyond a hedge or whatever you're trying to do. But like I said, I don't understand that because if you think he can bounce back, and I think he can, and I think he really fits the game theory of this, I think that you want to be on that, and then you double down based off of that factor. So just a note, I definitely think that's good. And then who's the other guy here I wanted to look up? Adam Scott. I think he hurt some feelings today a little bit too, right? Some people were saying Adam Scott really hurt them. Shot a +2, 3 birdies, left 2 of the par 5s out there. He was kind of okay after the 2 bogeys. I know he did start on the front and then went from there, but just to make note. So let's see. 1, 2, 3 birdies overall, but he had that triple, which was a snowman on the par 5 on 16. So that definitely kills a lot of his stats. So for example, he looks really bad around the greens. First of all, who cares about around the green? Because we want a guy in Showdown hitting the green starting tomorrow. And then second of all, he actually still gained on approach and with the putter just slightly. So he's another guy I would actually have to bounce back. I think he is 8,500 for tomorrow. Let me just double check. I had that up here as well. Yeah, 8,500 for tomorrow for Adam Scott. Tom Kim, 83. But again, not many guys that I like or care about in this range. And that's, I think, going to be the same for most. And it's not that, I just don't have other pivots. Maybe when I deep dive further into some of the guys that would fit the 5-1 builds, I could find guys in this range that would be pivots off of the most common ones that people are going to play here in Homa and Tom Kim. But I think Scott and Rose are already unique enough. And I do want to address my guy Kevin on one other thing. He said, do you think the Euros did better than the PGA guys? So many said, why would you put a Euro over a PGA player just talent-wise? I think one, it's day one. And two, it's my same thing I said. It's exactly what I said, is that will there be Euros at the top? Yes. Will they likely be ones that you pegged and got right? Probably not. And that's you can go look, just go on your app right now, sort by fantasy points. Look at the Euros that are up there and look at the ownership beside them. And they're all extremely low for the most part, at least. Dietrich, maybe a little, but Yannick Paul, Ross Fisher, Ewan Ferguson, the knockoff Ricky Fowler, Julian Brunn, late entry. Actually, I don't even think he got into the field on DraftKings because I know he got in on FanDuel. I saw they added him late, but I don't think he got in on DraftKings. Oliver Becker, all these guys that you're going to talk, Sammy Valimaki, Wacky Valimaki, as our guy Mayo likes to call him. All these guys, Thunderbear, Thorborn Olsen, not owned by anybody that matters or cares. Could they show up in a winning lineup by the end of the week if they continue to do this? Of course. But my point was that's why you had to pinpoint the ones that you were getting on. And then JT said, anytime you see Mark Lovin slamming Hovland in his lineups, you know it's a good play. It's not over yet, man. Like, again, if you're counting Hovland out yet, I think that's crazy. The cut line is probably going to be -1. It's nothing for Hovland, a guy like of his caliber, to go out and make this cut tomorrow, cruise through over the weekend. We've seen way crazier stuff at harder courses. We've seen Xander Schauffele at a Memorial go and shoot 8 over on day one and come back to top 20 the event. So don't forget, the other side of that is in your main slate stuff, because you're making fun of main slate stuff, is the scoring that goes into that to make that comeback makes them extremely valuable. So I wouldn't be talking about Hovland as a bad play just yet on this slate. So let's move on. Let's go to the 7K range. We already talked about Connors. He's 7,900 tomorrow. Talked about him as a bounce back. So right now, early bounce backs for me: Hovland, Scott, Corey Connors, the three that stand out. Somebody mentioned earlier, so we'll pull them up now. How about Rasmus? Rasmus Højgaard coming off the Maiden Himmerland win last week. He pulled a Brandon Wu birdie-free round, 3 over, 3 bogeys, but the rest all pars. So again, not something that would worry me too much. I have no problem with Rasmus for tomorrow. Ryan Fox is someone that people like for the main slate. Left one of the par 5s out there, still made 4 birdies and shot a 1 under. I wouldn't call it a bounce back, but you can go back to him. We talked about Woodland being able to bounce back. I mean, he shot even par. Like I said, the other thing is, earlier I mentioned this, but just to bring it up again, is people saying like, oh, it's so easy. Like, to me, even is not bouncing back. The dude is literally riding the cut line, probably off by 1 or 2 strokes. And really, with the weather tomorrow, it seems like 1 under would be the cut, if not coming back the other way, if weather actually got crazy. So I got no problem with that. Scott, no Benny, no cash. Yeah, for round 1 showdown, it's 1 round. Doesn't matter. Another thing, like bringing that up. Who cares? It's 1 round. Right now, yeah, you're not at the top of the leaderboards. If you don't have Benny, who knows where he'll be at? Do you think he's going to do this every day? Like, do we put him at 36 under and he wins the Scottish Open? No. So I don't care about that stuff ever. Doesn't bother me in the least. I like Paddy the Baddy. I always do. Came in and got the job done. Does what he does. 4 birdies on the day. Left the par 5 out there. 3 under. Only 1 bogey. The rest all pars. Very solid stats across the board. Good off the tee. Solid on approach. Great around the green. Actually lost with the putter. So tried, tested, and true. We know Paddy the Baddy will always come through. That's our guy. 7,400 for tomorrow. And then Rasmus's brother, Nikolai, usually touted as the better brother, but right now Rasmus obviously coming off the win. 3 birdies, bunch of bogeys, tied it up there. So even par on the day. Left 2 of the par 5s out there, really up and down with the stats. So he's 7,400 for tomorrow. I like Paddy better. I like Woodland better in that range. And then somebody brought up Gim. I think Gim is at least somewhat interesting as a bounce back. I do want to see something, though, with Gim, going back to my same thing. What did he start on? So Gim obviously was PMAM. I know that, but I'm looking to see where he started his round here. Just one second. both charts up. It's hard. You just got to train the eyes a little better to find it quicker. But Doug Gim. Anyone knows? So he started on the back nine. So I looked this up, and this is part of the deep dive, just so people want to understand the process. He actually had much better irons on the front, on the back nine, which was his first nine. And then I don't see anything happening. He actually lost strokes on approach on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pretty bad on the back, on his back nine, which was the front nine for the day. And so it's, again, can he bounce back tomorrow and just flip it? Of course, he's 2 over. I just see less of a bounce back than that. I'll get to all the guys you guys are bringing up because I don't think any of the guys you're bringing up are part of the PMAM wave, which we're discussing right now as we go through the tiers, because that's really where we're going. Kurt Kitayama is, someone brought up Kurt, so I'll bring him up. Kurt Kitayama, again, bounce back. Is it really a bounce back? He's +1. Like, he's fine. He made 5 birdies on the day. He left 2 of the par 5s out there and royally screwed them up. A double on one and a bogey in there. So add Kurt Kitayama to my bounce back pile because he was still solid on approach. Really good numbers across the board. Good with the putter, not too good though. Like, he didn't make anything crazy. He was just solid throughout the day. And I definitely think he fits the mold. So again, I can see him bouncing back, and anyone that can put up 5 birdies on this course while really messing up 2 par 5s is of interest to me because he can score again and he can maybe do a better job on those par 5s. So he pops up. Someone I think mentioned Eckroat. Don't see anything too crazy with him. Everyone wanted to play Romain on the main slate. I thought he was pretty interesting. He lost almost 3 strokes with the putter. So still shot even. It's not a bounce back, but if you want a guy that you could go back to, only 2 birdies, left 2 of the par 5s out there, gained over a stroke and a half on approach, lost almost 3 with the putter. So again, I think Romain wasn't extremely high owned, but for his price point and his tier on DraftKings main slate, he was heavily owned. That being said, I think people are very full on Romain Lettuce for tomorrow. So they're probably going to be sitting there, sitting in that pile of salad saying they're all good and just moving on and not playing him. If you want to go back to him at 7,300, I think he would be fine. I also think people are going to say the same thing about this one for Bjork, Alexander Bjork. Sorry, I was trying to bring this guy up here. He's also 7,300 in the morning. He ended up getting to 20% owned in places. I told the Discord last night, I talked about it in the SHIPIT Nation Discord, but well before lock, someone asked about him, and I said, you don't see him on my stuff. I had whatever the 6 lineups that Mayo and I did. I think I was in for $4 or $5 grand on the week. He's in $144 of my lineups. I was not feeling that. I thought that the ownership could get boosted, and I really just liked the range much better around him. I liked a lot of the other guys. Steam for no reason, more steam than I could ever expect. All that said, I think he goes in the pool for tomorrow. Solid on approach. He's only +1. As far as the holes go, he left 2 of the par 5s up there, still made 3 birdies, lost almost a stroke with the putter, so can still burn me on the main. I'm just saying you look at what the ownership got to, pretty aggressive, and he's definitely a guy that fits the mold of what I said earlier, where it's going to be, I'm good. I got more than enough Bjork on the main slate. He'll help me out there. Now, he could be a guy that also busts you up both places, so I don't hate it from that perspective, but for me, I definitely think that's interesting. Starlord's dad said, don't forget X last year was 7 off the lead after round 1 and won this tournament. Yeah, there's a lot that can go into. That's a great point, actually, that got brought up. It happens all the time. We've seen Tom Kim quadruple bogey, a snowman at the first hole, and come on to win a tournament. Like, again, I don't know why people are so invested in it unless your money's in on first round leaders or round 1 showdown. It's part of the sweat. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying the ultra tilt is just almost never necessary because you have no idea what's going to happen. And the funny part is everyone's so happy with guys that are 1 and 2 under right now. It's like, oh, my guy Scott's a loser. He could knock him through. Hovland is dead. Let's get him on the plane. We joke about it. I put the guys out and I'll have them on the plane tomorrow for sure if they're needed to go on the plane. But just saying it in general, everyone assumes the other guy is a lock and this guy's dead, and it flips all the time. So I definitely think that's one thing to keep in mind as well. And then somebody messaged this guy, talked about this guy earlier. Somebody messaged me about this guy last night, a DM on Twitter, Daniel Hillier, who'd actually had really good results coming in, and at the end of the day, didn't really get talked about much on the week like some of the other players from the DP World Tour. He had a win, he had a third, he had something else coming in, and no one was really mentioning him. I said, of course, play him if you want, like add him into the list. If that's your guy, all I said is make him your guy and commit to it. Don't say, I got 2 or 3 Daniel Hillier shares just to say you have him. Let's try and mix him in. If you're doing that, he ended up having a pretty good day. 2 under, 4 birdies, left 1 of the par 5s out there, solid on approach, lost with the putter. He's 7,200 tomorrow. You want to go back to him, I think you can. Riley will get chased. So just a note, again, look how good his round was. Bogey free. Still left the par 5 out there. One side much better than the other, mind you. So should look that up too. I should just know because I think it was really early. He definitely went out on the front, right? Yeah, because he was crushing it in all the tweets and everything that went out. Reason to look at him there, but he'll definitely be a guy that people chase. So there's something to be said for that. But this is actually not the case, Kevin. Not here for me, at least. You can, again, do what you want. This is not me to tell you what to do. I'm just saying it's not the same. That's a main slate strategy where we're unsure of 2 days worth of weather and we don't actually know what's going to happen. Again, we still don't know what's going to actually happen, so maybe a bad way to word it. But my point being, I don't see that at all being the case for tomorrow, at least as of right now. If anything changes, it'll be updated in the ShipItNation.com Discord. But I don't see anything right now that would say that tomorrow would be a case to play both sides. I have no problem if you want to fit a guy, or even two, if you want to go a 5-1 or a 4-2 and you're confident in it, run it out there. But it's not, I'm not double stacking tomorrow in sets when the wave advantage clearly looks for the AM. It is not the same as the strategy that we're using on main slate, as I explained in the slate plan on the site this week at ShipItNation.com. So back to this range and just some other stuff here. I want to see somebody else mention something else. You and Ferguson. We already talked about knockoff Ricky at the top. Again, people will go to a guy like him regardless of his wave tomorrow just because they didn't get to him on the main. He was also a guy that was mentioned because of the knockoff Ricky video that came out and stuff. So I think people kind of were like thinking of him and then didn't go there. And now that they see he did his thing, they'll want to hop on at least a little bit. He won't be super popular, though, so do what you want with him. I'm just trying to see, is there anybody else in the 7K range you guys want to look up? Jordan Smith. We'll probably spend another 10 minutes or so here going through some of this stuff. So if you guys have questions, Jordan Smith, definitely interesting. He started on the back nine, I know, because he started stronger and then didn't do anything after that. Mind you, his stats were still pretty good on the back nine. He just was making pars instead of the front nine. He had that run of 4 birdies straight. So looked like a Davis Riley type round and then fell off a little bit with the 2 bogeys and all pars thereafter, but definitely someone you can go back to tomorrow. I think Norin, all putters, still went 1 under, but again, a guy that can make 5 birdies while leaving 2 par 5s out there. Always have interest in someone like him. I know Keith Mitchell got a boost late on the main slate, 4 birdies, left 2 of the par 5s out there. Pretty solid stats, lost with the putter. Definitely think he's interesting. And then Bez was another guy I was going to look up. 4 birdies, left 2 of the par 5s out there, royally messed up 1, hole 10, and still a pretty solid day. So I think Bez is interesting. And then somebody asked about Stallings. Just a basic round, even par round with a bogey and a double, 3 birdies, all on the par 5s. Interesting note. So he did take care of the par 5s. What is Stallings for tomorrow? Just 1 second. Let me look him up here. So Stallings goes out in the morning. What's his price for tomorrow? He's 6,400. I had Ross Fisher and Valimaki down here that I want to look at. So I'm going to add him. I'll take a deep dive look at Scott Stallings after just to see, because he is in the wave, and just looking at it from that perspective is at least somewhat interesting. But stats wise, is what it is. Let me look at the other guys when we get down there. Moving to the 6K range real quickly. Harry Hall, 1 over. Don't see anything special with him. Yannick Paul. Yannick Paul is going to get chased, so he's like Davis Riley. Would definitely make sure when you're thinking of that, build accordingly. If you're going to just pump in Yannick Paul and Davis Riley and Scotty Scheffler, that's probably not going to be an uncommon start because of the way it's setting up here already with, again, people going PMAM, that being something that fits, and those guys flying up the board, and the stats looking really good. Really looking at it, though, for Yannick Paul, 2 holes made up most of his approach stats, and he shot a 5 under because he had an eagle that it looks like he chipped in from around the green on hole 3. So again, some of those stats can be a little bit deceiving when it comes to that. Eric Cole, I'm going to save all these ones till the end. I think Eric Cole goes off in the afternoon tomorrow, and we'll get to that stage because people are going to want to look that up. I'm going to rapid fire the 6K range and save most of it and then go back and search some of the guys people wanted me to actually look up. Rosner, 2 under. He looks okay. Mackenzie Hughes, 1 under. Left 2 of the par 5s out there. Decent stats across the board. Nothing wrong with going back to him. Patrick Rogers ended up losing almost 2 strokes on approach. Still made 3 birdies. Left 1 of the par 5s out there and shot even par. So he's a little bit interesting. Another guy that people got to by the end of the day on the main slate. I think that's interesting. And then Bramlett was one guy I wanted to bring up down here. Already talked about Romain down there, but Joseph Bramlett, 2.5 strokes on approach of his 4.5 were all on the eagle hole out on one. So something to keep in mind. Again, he should get popular because he fits at 6,800 and fits the mold. My guy, Matthew Southgate, who I kind of like for the main slate, left 2 of the par 5s out there, still made 3 birdies, lost over 3 strokes with the putter while gaining pretty decent on approach in different areas. So solid there. Ben Griffin was playing pretty good until he wasn't. I think it was mostly the one eagle that he had, but he's somebody that was down there. And then Audrey Arnaus, this guy was the one Mayo talked about yesterday, was trying to talk me into him. Pretty solid first day, 1 under, up and down round, but 5 birdies, left one of the par 5s out there, gained almost 3 strokes on approach pretty evenly. 4 or 5 holes contributed to it, but that's still pretty solid across the board. And he's just 6,500 for tomorrow. And then the last 2 I wanted to look up were Ross Fisher, another guy I think people get to tomorrow, and for good reason. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 birdies, left a par 5 out there. Only 2 holes he messed up, and one of them was big time. All of his around the green game that he lost was that 1 hole 8 where he double bogeyed that hurt his round overall, but the irons were absolutely dialed on the back 9. He's another guy we can check quickly. This is Ross Fisher we're looking at here. He started on the back, so he came out on fire. Not that his front 9, which was his back 9 that he played, 1 through 9, was that bad, but he obviously messed up at the end with that double bogey on 8 for his 17th hole. And then Valimaki, another guy, looks pretty good on the stats. 5 birdies, left the par 5 out there. Solid, really solid across the board on approach, though. So I don't mind playing a guy like him for tomorrow. Let's go back. Let's round the show out with some of the guys the chat had mentioned. Trying to play a balancing act here to get this thing working, but just going down through it. Someone had asked about Spieth. I know that. We can start there. Wow, really bad on approach across the board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of his back 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of his front. So 16 of 18 holes he lost on approach. Worse than most on his front 9 that he played when he played 1 through 9. Only 2 birdies on the day. Did leave 2 par 5s out there, but not someone that would have my interest, really. We talked about Benny Ann. Somebody already brought him out. Wyndham Clark and Tom Kim, we talked about. Fleetwood was another one that somebody brought up. So Fleetwood would probably be a guy. He was pretty popular on the main slate. Nothing wrong with going back to him, I don't think. 4 birdies, left the par 5 out there. Overall, even par on the day, but his approach game was pretty solid. He lost. He just gained slightly on approach, not pretty solid overall, but on the back 9, 10 through 18, it was fine. He did lose over a stroke with the putter. So can a guy like Fleetwood adapt? I think yes. Somebody wants Aberg stats. Wow. Lost almost 3 strokes with the putter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 really bad holes with the putter. Gained off the tee as he always does, but actually lost on approach, gained around the greens, 4 birdies, left one of the par 5s out there. Somewhat intriguing if you're plugging a guy in that you want to have in those builds, because he definitely went out early, so he goes out late tomorrow. But maybe that ball flight or those off the tee shots, he can just find his way through that wind and then pick up a little more with the putter. But it also will be a little bit windier, so something to keep in mind as well. Shout out to Lawton. He's a SHIPIT Nation member. Says, if you haven't joined yet, I highly recommend doing so. I've been winning so much more compared to when I was with other sites. It's really that. There's a lot more there for you guys. If you aren't a member yet or don't know about it, you can go to shipitnation.com and check it out. It's free to check out the site. So at least bring it up and go see what you see what you get. But it shows everything that we include. And there's a lot more to it than just hoops plays or my plays or the rest of our team's content. We have projections. We have other stuff that goes with it, tools for MLB right now. And that's kind of the main thing. Our price is so cheap that most people are saying it's good value for what you're already getting and what we've added. Since starting and just being MLB and PGA, we added MMA with Titletown, with Marley, 2 guys that are extremely good at the sport, in knowing the sport, applying it to DFS, and actually playing DFS. You'll see other sites bring on certain guys, but do they actually even play DFS? I don't know. Knowing the sport is awesome. Knowing the sport, being able to break it down and apply it to DFS where we can actually win money, a whole different ball game. That's something our guys do extremely well. And then we also added best ball stuff with the rankings, going through and doing the free shows, all that stuff that you guys can check out, and being in the Discord to get your drafts critiqued, to find out what you're doing right, wrong, what you could be doing different, things that you can do to get better. And that's what it's all about. SHIPIT Nation, innovation, education. We talk about it all the time. Get better and try and get good at what you want to do to win money. And that's the goal of all of it. Help people out with it in the Discord. So check us out if you guys haven't already. And then Rye, we did talk about him already. Again, I think Rye is fine. Just to bring it up one last time. If you guys have anything else, now's the time to throw it in the chat before I get out of here. Rye lost 2 strokes on approach, lost almost 2 strokes with the putter, still made 2 birdies, both on par 5s, but left one of the par 5s out there. But it really was just 2 birdies, 3 bogeys, and shot a +1. He's not out of it. He's a guy that can bounce back. He's priced accordingly. And I think tomorrow, what is he? He actually goes out late, just to check it here, didn't he? Yeah, he went out early today. So he goes out late tomorrow. Don't know if he'll make it into the deep dive when I do add guys for the 5-1s or the 4-2s on the site. Zanotti, somebody brought up Fabrizio Zanotti. 3 birdies, 3 bogeys, even par, solid on approach, lost with the putter over a stroke, and left one of the par 5s out there. Not breaking my neck to go there, but just let me see real quick on Zanotti. He is 6,300 tomorrow. And maybe you just need him for Maine and you're wondering. He does go out in the morning, but let me pull him one more time. Maybe I have interest. I don't think so. I guess he'd be okay if you had to go there. The guy I was looking at down there that I didn't even talk about actually was Sebastian Soderberg. And he went 3 under on the day as well. Bogey free. Left one of the par 5s out there. 3 birdies. Solid on approach on his front 9. His back 9 lost a little bit with the irons, but lost almost 2 strokes with the putter. So the only thing about him is he is up the board. So I'll do a bigger deep dive. I'll add in Zanotti just for my friend Gamble with Jake. And we'll take a deeper dive on him and then go from there to see if I have anything else. I think that's going to do it though, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Do me a favor. If you can, smash that like button, hit the subscribe. If you haven't yet done so, we're going to be doing the giveaway on Tuesday's show, Tuesday the 18th. We will have the open show, Hoop myself, 3 p.m. Eastern, free on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube channel. You just go to youtube.com/@SHIPIT Nation. Go there. You can subscribe. We hit the 2,000 subscribers, so now the drive for 3,000 starts up, but we are going to be giving away 2 monthly memberships on that show. One of them, it's already set in stone because it was a comment contest for this week's video. The other one we'll probably give away live as we do the show. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for always supporting. We'll be back tomorrow, same channel, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern with myself and Hoop. For myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it!